Hello, I'm Laurie, Lane-Zucker, founder and CEO of Impact Entrepreneur, and we are here at the SOCAP conference, the largest impact investing conference in the world, San Francisco, California, and I'm excited to have sitting next to me Jane Reisman and Sekar, both of whom are they're both two of the great experts in impact measurement that are around, and we're going to have a conversation about what you do and where you see this discipline going. So, Jane, I'm going to ask each of you to just say what your company is, what your business is, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Thanks, Laurie. You want to hold it? Okay, great. Well, it's really fun to be here in conversation with you, one of my favorite colleagues here, Uma. And my business is a social impact advising business, which is really setting up IMM systems and working on the ground with different impact investment groups, as well as working at the field level to really help advance the field of impact measurement and management.
And you've been doing this for a while. I know you did quite a bit of work with Rockefeller Foundation and other foundations. You want to speak a little bit about that?
Sure. So I had the privilege of being an advisor to the Rockefeller Foundation for 3 years and worked on a grant with them on how to think about what we need to do in order to build impact measurement into impact investing and answer a lot of the questions about what do we need to solve for and how do you do that. I've also worked real closely with the GIN as they're developing the IRIS Plus system. I've worked with the MacArthur Foundation on their IMM system, worked with a number of other practitioners and funders.
Great. Uma, what is the name of your business?
I work with Capria Ventures. We are a leading emerging market network of funds. We provide three forms of support for our fund managers. We provide capacity building, and we also provide flexible capital. And for fund managers that make it, we provide limited partner investments. And we're also curating a peer network where they can collaborate deeply with each other and learn and overcome challenges together.
So I will say here that several months ago, Jane and Uma were on one of our webinars as part of our webinar series that we hold on impact measurement and management. I think it was called The Evolution of Impact Measurement and Management. That program is already or is on Impact Entrepreneur TV, our YouTube channel, so you can seek it out there if you would like to get a deeper dive into all of this. But let's talk about IMM a bit. Here at SOCAP, there are quite a few sessions that address aspects of IMM. What is your experience so far of what's happening here on SOCAP around this crucially important piece of the impact investing as well as the business creation and management effort?
Well, it's really exciting, and I will say that there were so many conferences, and I actually had to think hard, did I want to come to this conference this year? And then I saw so much on IMM happening here that I knew I need to be here and see what the conversation was. And our webinar was on the evolution of IMM, and what's really becoming clear is there's a huge consensus happening on how doable it is, what are the frameworks to learn about and to do, and there's been deeper and better conversations, not just can we measure or not measure, not just do you have a theory of change, but like what does due diligence look like? What does it look like to do impact validation? What does it look like? How do you implement the new IRIS Plus system? There's very deep conversations that are showing folks how to advance their practice, and I'm thrilled to see that.
Uma, what is your experience of the conference so far in relation to the work that you do around IMM?
So with Capria Ventures, I work with each of our fund managers to support them in developing their own impact strategies, and that starts with thinking about their thesis all the way to how do you take that thesis into your formal documentation and your screening process and due diligence process and the portfolio management systems that they're building. And I had the privilege of being on a panel hosted by the GIN on IRIS Plus and the use of IRIS Plus. And I think in that discussion, it was eye-opening to hear other panelists who I have known but have never heard about how they've implemented IRIS Plus. So like Jane mentioned, we're starting to see use cases now of how to go about impact measurement and management, which is a huge shift in the conversation from do we measure to how do we do it to this is how we're doing it, and we're learning along the way. So I think that journey has transitioned, which is great to see.
What are some of the largest kind of challenges that's being faced right now? What are some of the hurdles that the impact and measurement experts are still struggling with?
So I'd say one challenge is still there are different systems out there that an organization like the GIN has pulled together through the Iris Plus system, but there's still a lot of knowledge building that needs to happen out there, that people can align with some of the emerging best practices around Iris Plus, aligning with the UN Sustainable Development Goals and the Impact Management Project. And there's a whole section of capital on the private sector side that it'll be great to bring all that commercial capital into impact investing, but there's still a knowledge gap there. And I would say that that transfer needs to happen very quickly so that we can pull more capital in, knowing that there's over a $5 trillion gap in capital right now.
Jane, is the diversity of and the number of platforms associated with impact measurement, is that a positive? Is that a net negative? Is there too much replication of efforts, or is this all a good thing with a lot of experimentation, and there's still, with the presumption that there's still a lot more evolution that can happen? Or is it more important at this stage of the game to have some kind of consolidation and agreement so you can have an easier process of comparing funds, one fund to another, or comparing the efforts of one company to another?
Yeah, that's a really great question. The whole notion of standardization has really come about because the field became so fragmented that we started out with, a simple set of metrics when the GIN started out in 2000, and I think they released them in 09 or 10. And over time, so many organizations started developing their own proprietary ways of measuring. And as someone who's making choices about how to go about doing it or where to invest your money, it's not clear on who's doing the better job or what it really means, and there was no transparency. So many of the major players started to work hard together and really collaborated about how to align. So now, even though there's a number of different products, there is growing consensus of using Iris Plus as a system, using the Impact Management Project for dimensions, using principles like IFC. There's a lot of groups working together closely to break down that confusion so that when you start to hear, we don't know much about it yet, it's too hard to do, it's too expensive to do. One of the organizations on your panel, Uma, was Nuveen, a pension fund, and they're doing a magnificent job. So it can be done by very large pension funds as well as by smaller, more boutique fund managers as well.
How important is the long history that the philanthropy sector has had in measuring the impact of their giving and programmatics around the world? How much has that influenced where this business impact measurement has been going?
In my experience of having transitioned from that world to the impact investing world, the concepts behind the core concepts of evaluation, those have come really nicely into impact investing, so people understand the application of logic models and building a theory of change without going into the depth of what you would normally do with a nonprofit. But people are finding that balance and are willing to accept existing evaluation practices. But I would still say, having worked with people like Jane, who have been in that world for longer, that there's still a need for evaluators to come into this space to help impact measurement professionals and impact investors sort of break this down and understand that it's not as complicated, and build systems that are right-sized for each type of fund manager or each type of investor.
Jane, do you want to add to that? You have a lot of experience with philanthropies and...
Yeah. That's really something that bugs me a lot, Laurie. And I'm not going to say a lot about it, but I'll say why it bugs me.
You can let loose here. We just have a global audience. That's
My soapbox, yay! So, as Uma said, I had a career for 25 years working with philanthropy and public and social sector, evaluating social change. And if impact is about changes in people and planet, our largest global threats around the climate, poverty, hunger, and so it's a really tough nut to crack. And so when foundations are making grants, they expect nonprofits to really go deep in understanding, are you making a difference? And so foundations know quite a bit about how to look at impact. But somehow when we get into impact investing, we're giving everybody a pass on how deep you need to go or how much you have to look at complexity and interconnectedness and all the things that the negative impacts that go with positive impacts. So I would say I agree totally with Uma. Some of the tools are transferring over, like let's all start with what's your impact thesis, what's your theory of change. We need to have some data, but the level of depth is just not paralleled. And I'm not saying it should be identical, but I would like to say we need to try harder. We need to push for more.